Hello and welcome to DW Africa on this Thursday, the 19th of January 2023. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's live chat. On this edition of the show, we will be discussing about the ongoing energy crisis in Southern Africa. The South Africans are in the dark following unprecedented national blackout facing the country. It all started some 16 years ago, and to date, power supply in Africa's biggest economy remains unreliable. Some experts predict the energy crisis may spread throughout the Southern Africa region. They further warn that this may bring things to a standstill in the coming years. But how is it to survive in the dark? My name is Josie Mahachi, and joining me for this discussion is Pumlani Majosi, a South African analyst and senior fellow at African Liberty. Also from Zambia, we have our correspondent, Kathy Short. We are also expecting to be joined by Hagai Chifunda. He's still yet to connect, who owns a barber shop in Zambia. So let us bring our guests onto the screen. There is Mr. Pumlani Majosi from South Africa. Good evening, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's my first time here, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much. And there goes Kathy Short, our correspondent all the way from Zambia. Kathy, how are you and good evening?
Hi, Josie. Thank you. Good evening. How are you?
Fine, thank you. So I hope your brother will be able to join us during the live chat because we really wanted to hear from him as a small business owner in Zambia.
Yes, I hope so too. I hope he's not affected even by the power cuts themselves.
We hope so. Now, let me start with you, Mr. Pumlani. South Africans have endured power cuts for years, but 2022 was the worst on record with 205 days of rolling blackouts as aging coal-fired power plants broke down and state-owned power utility Eskom struggled to find the money to buy diesel for emergency generators. You are in the midst of the crisis. Tell us, how has this personally affected you?
Well, it's been a painful time. As you've just said, it got worse over the past year of 2022. We had the worst blackouts since the whole thing began, as you said earlier, about 16 years ago. And it hasn't been resolved yet. And personally, I have been, very much affected because now it has gotten worse. There has to be adjustments in how I work. I'm a media person. I'm, a political and economic commentator. And the fact that I was able to join your show is because the load shedding or the time at which the blackouts will take place is not now.
Is that why you were really insisting on time? Like, what time is it going to be?
That's why I asked you, what
Oh my
time is it
God.
going to be?
Oh my, so
because
it's good we're doing it this time, yeah?
Yes, because I had to look at my schedule to see whether this show, whether I could participate in the show. So it's been a disruption, even the traffic on the streets because the traffic lights they don't work. Businesses have been affected severely. Restaurants in the country, massive disruptions there. So the impact has been very much huge. Even in farming as well, there has been an impact there. So big industries like mining have been very much affected. So the impact has been huge. Now that is when we are at a point now where there is a lot of frustration amongst the people. Was the idea of staying for about 12 hours without power. So your whole day is basically affected, how you work, how you interact. If you run a business, you are impacted. If you have plans. So, I mean, it's been a huge impact, and there is that frustration and anger amongst South Africans brewing now that these things should have been resolved. It's the failures of our leaders. We got here because of mismanagement, incompetence, and so on and so on. So we are in a tough time in South Africa. We are at a time that I describe as we're at a crossroad. because this is all happening, Joseph, I mean, a year and a few months before the national election in 2024. So it's a critical time. We shall see how this shapes the election, the path toward the elections next year.
Okay, no problem. We will actually touch on what the government's plan is as the show continues. But Kathy, for now, Zimbabwe stopped generating electricity at the South Power Station of the Kariba Dam, Kariba South on the Zambezi River. This actually also affects Zambia. How bad is the situation regarding power cuts in Zambia?
I think the power cuts started last year, and although the government and the power utility company could not confirm that, but they became very bad at the beginning of January, and there was so much anger. I remember just a 3 days straight online, there was a tug of war between the people and the leaders, and the people could not really take it. They said, we cannot stay 12 hours without power daily. And also they took the government to task. I've never seen Zambian people very angry like I've seen them in this month, taking the government leaders to task, including the president. They kept them there on their toes, and they kept reminding the UPND government, specifically the president, that he made a promise that load shedding was going to be a thing of the past. So Zambia has really been affected all across the country. And also the issue of their communication strategy as a government was messy, and people didn't take that lightly. There were even some issues of the president issuing some statements that were actually not true or verified. And then they had to apologize again. So that just messed up the whole thing. There were even some reports that there were some leaks in the Kariba Dam, and that also Zimbabwe had overdrawn the water. So I think at the core of all this is mismanagement, like my colleague from South Africa mentioned. Mostly the governments in Southern Africa, Zambia and South Africa and other countries have not really invested much in hydroelectrical supply as well as other alternatives.
Now, I see that Hagai Chifunda has joined us. That is a small business owner in Zambia. He is a barber. Now, Hagai, load shedding is hobbling small businesses and jeopardizing economic growth in a country with an unemployment rate of about 33%. How are the power cuts impacting your business as a small business owner?
To my side, I would say we are struggling to stay in this small businesses of barbing because of many hours of load shedding. Yes. Like for me, I've been losing out of losing customers instead of gaining from them. I've now been losing from my customers simply because of many hours of load shedding.
So what alternative plan have you put in place for you to make sure that your customers can still have good looking hair like Mr. Majosi there and can still have their haircuts? What alternative plans have you in place?
I've just bought rechargeable machines whereby you just charge them. You charge them, they just use more like energy. You just charge them and then you can use to cut 2 to 3 customers, but still it's not enough.
Okay, we also went to Zimbabwe just to find out how people are coping in Zimbabwe in terms, Zimbabwe is just like South Africa, just like Zambia, Malawi, Namibia. I saw Namibia. It's the whole region that is affected. Let's just hear from other business owners in Zimbabwe.
As a chicken farmer based in Marondera, Zimbabwe, the persistent power cuts have affected my business tremendously. Why am I saying so? We depend on the power to stock our chickens before dispatching to various customers in and around Marondera. But for the past 4 months, it hasn't been easy for me, as I have to adapt to other forms of power to save my business. Why am I saying so? It is because I lost, I think, a quarter of my chickens in December last year due to power cuts. My chickens got rotten, my chickens got bad, and I could not dispose them due to their nature. So I've tried to move away from relying on electricity, transition my business into solar powered or using gas for my freezers.
Been affected by the current power cuts?
Yeah, usually in terms of the growing of the chickens is a bit tricky because you need like a proper heating supply. So sometimes you get not fully grown chickens because of the electricity supply. I think that's one of the main reasons we're affected. And when we slaughter the chickens, sometimes they don't freeze because we have a few days without electricity. I think that's about it. Yeah.
They take advantage.
Sorry, repeat?
Thieves take advantage of the dark. Yeah, so even our gadgets, they end up being seized down. Yeah.
Okay, so that last gentleman there is talking about how maybe his kids are taking advantage of the blackouts, and also their gadgets are they're getting affected by the power cuts and things like that. These are voices from Zimbabwe who are also experiencing the same problem that all of you on this discussion are experiencing. Now, just to go back to South Africa, we saw that the President Ramaphosa had to cancel his trip to Davos because he said he wants to sort out the energy crisis. Mr. Madjozi, what is South African government's plan, especially with this crisis that is really now affecting one of the biggest Africa's economies?
Well, you are correct. He did cancel the trip that he was supposed to attend at the World Economic Forum so that he could at least, according to him and his people, focus on this issue that has gotten worse. Now, what happened during the week is that there's a commission that the president has put together that is focusing on trying to find solutions to the electricity crisis. So the commission basically came out with a list of proposals to tackle this issue. And amongst, in a nutshell, or to summarize, the things that are proposed in that presentational document, one of them is basically for government to buy power from private producers. So government will buy power from those in private power producers that are already in existence. They also look into importing energy from other countries to try and sort of add to the amount of power that we have, so we can reduce them the power cuts. At least that's their goal. They also plan to quicken or to fasten the legislation process when it comes to the building of new power plants or things relating to maintenance of the existing power plants as well. So they plan to do this from a legislative point of view as well, because before it was kind of slower, the legislative process. So they want to quicken that, make it faster. So those are the things that have been proposed. They have also proposed to look into to basically focus on a few power stations that are already in trouble, focus on them to try and ensure that they can be fixed, that they can come back, they can bounce back to producing more power. So those are the things that the commission has put forward. Now, the finance minister, Enoch Godongwana, who is in Davos this week, he said on the sidelines of the summit, or of the forum, that the plans that are being put forward should be able to reduce load shedding or power outages within a space of 12 to 18 months. Now, Josie, that's very hard to believe, given where our government, the record of our government, and the fact that there are many inefficiencies and issues that would need to be resolved first. So, I mean, even the people who were watching this closely, they were quite surprised by the forecasts that were made when it comes to the plan that was proposed. And I must say that from a market perspective, and people in business in general, they do not buy the idea that within a space of 12, 18 months, we are going to see some serious improvements when it comes to the blackouts in South Africa. In fact, the projections or outlooks are that this thing will last for years. It will take years for things for us to really see the significant difference.
And Kathy, what is also the government of Zambia putting in place, or maybe their plans to try and cap this crisis of energy in the country?
I think for the past few years, we've been having electricity tariffs being increased. We have been told that they will do better, they will make the situation better and attend to other alternative sources. But that has just been keep talking. And now the people of Zambia are not taking it lightly. They've put a lot of pressure on the government, such that the president had to intervene directly, and also had to go to different power stations to negotiate for them to come onto the national grid. So right now, the situation has eased in terms of the power cuts. Instead of 12-hour power cuts, most people are experiencing about 4 hours, 4 hours at a time. Power cuts, 4 hours maybe in the morning, another 4 hours maybe at another time, but it's varied. Some places are only having 2 hours power cuts, some 4 hours, some 12 hours. So it's not systematic. And then also some places, even though they say the schedule is like this, they don't even follow the schedule. That is the power utility company, ZESCO. But within the past week or two, that there has been a lot of pressure from Zambian citizens. We've seen the government move at a fast pace speed. They've been able to negotiate for $2 billion US dollars worth of investment into alternative sources of energy with some UK investors who are already working right now as I'm talking. And the government, through the president, Hakainde Hichilema, have mentioned that they will ensure that there are no bottlenecks in terms of the investment, which I think has been one of the major problems, is that, there were so many bureaucratic issues and red tape to bring on board people that wanted to invest in this sector. But within this short time, we've seen the government really react so quickly. And also, he's just returned from Abu Dhabi. Also there, we've heard that there are billions of dollars that will be invested in alternative sources of power. So really, you can see that energy is the glue that keeps the economy of Africa together. And people will not just take, empty statements from politicians, because through social media, the Zambians have been able to see that the Zambian government was actually exporting power to other countries. And they said, you are leaving us in the dark, and yet you are making sure that other countries, so they took them to task. And it was really, really amazing to see that kind of build up, that kind of pressure on the government from ordinary Zambians using social media platforms.
Now, okay, yes, go ahead.
Yes, Kathy spoke about tariffs, if I'm not mistaken. What has happened in South Africa is that the National Energy Regulator has given approval for an increase in tariffs by Eskom. In other words, the cost of electricity provided by Eskom is going to go higher. Now,
but Mr. Majosi, talking of Eskom, they are increasing tariffs and there's been corruption allegations against this organization. So do you think this will be the solution, or do you think this will help?
it's not, and people are frustrated already. And it's even worse, the fact that here's a company that fails to meet the demand to provide the service it's supposed to provide. It now asks for more, an increase in price. That does not make sense. We're in blackouts and you want us to pay more. How? So people they are frustrated even by that. There are elements within the country that are challenging that legally via the court process. We hear the reports in the media. We shall see how that goes. But the whole thing doesn't make sense. And as you said, corruption, mismanagement, the whole thing that they can ask citizens to pay more for the product, that they can't get the best service. They are left stranded in blackouts. It does not make any sense.
I think it's high time that the region starts talking about realistic solutions. So are there any discussions on alternative sources of energy? Could renewables help? I mean, this question goes both ways to you, Mr. Majosi and Kathy.
I think I can start. I think renewables are the way to go. When we are looking at environmental protection and other issues to protect our planet, I think renewables come in very, very handy. And we've got the sun energy, we've got the wind, we've got all sorts of other alternative energies as a region in abundance. And we could actually harness them and even export and create more jobs for people like Mr. Haggai and his customers, and to help him, because it's these small businesses that actually keep our economies going. So if people like Mr. Haggai do not have access to electricity, it's a problem. Then the economy is not growing. So solar, for instance, is one thing that we could easily tap into because we have the sun in abundance in the region.
But I've seen a lot of Chinese companies starting, like opening solar companies in Southern Africa, especially in Zimbabwe before I left. How is that going in South Africa and in Zambia?
Yeah, the Chinese are all over. I think we know they've come to Africa and many other parts and taken advantage of the situation. And so they are into all sorts of businesses, from selling chickens to electricity, energy and other things. So they've seen the need and they are here to stay. So I think local manufacturers and other investors have to come in as well, so that we have a big alternative where people can source alternative energy.
Mr. Majosi?
Yes. So for me, Josie, renewables, as Kathy has said, they're an opportunity. Of course, we need to find ways to see how that can add to our energy challenges. But I think that what our leaders have let us down is the planning of the process of that transition of the old way, or the traditional way of producing energy, highly reliant on coal, especially in our country, in South Africa. There hasn't been a strategic sort of a smooth planning when it comes to the embracing of renewables. I am of the view that, given the fact that we are a challenged sub-Saharan region with various challenges from an economy, employment perspective, socio-economic development, various issues of poverty, that the way we transition or embrace renewables has to be more structured, right? So in the sort of short-term, medium-term, we can make sure that we still use the resources like the coal that we have, because right now, as we speak, we're exporting a lot of coal to other European countries that face energy challenges and so on. But we can, at this point in time, while we transition to move to renewables, also continue to use the coal and phase it sort of slowly over the next years. It can't be something that is done in a quick
And boom,
way.
switch.
Yes, in developing countries, that really can't be done because we have millions of people still trapped in poverty, and you need that smooth, transition. So I think for me right now, at this point in time, given the fact that in about 2 hours right now, in fact 1 hour 45 minutes, the power will be off again.
Okay. We'll be done.
Will be done by then, I hope. So, I mean, we've got to have a mixed kind of approach to our energy. And I think that approach of mixed sort of strategy from our leaders, it has been lacking. There hasn't been really a coordinated strategy to ensure that we still continue to have power and transition things quite slowly in a strategic way. Don't just aim to pull out at this point all things coal related, because they are going to cause a huge impact in the country. And in many ways in South Africa, that we are feeling that right now.
Now, just to Haggai, so that we also hear from him, what would you want the Zambian government to do for you small-scale business owners in terms of electricity and energy crisis? What do you want them to do for you? How do you want them to help you right now?
I think they should introduce commercial solar panels for small businesses like ours, for them to keep on running, because 12 hours of load shedding is just too much for us. So that's what I think.
Okay. So, Kathy, what do you think about Haggai's plea to the government? Do you think that is possible? Is it something that you see the government of Zambia doing anytime soon?
Yeah, the citizens of, now in Zambia, they are not letting any government off the hook, even though the UPND was the darling of the Zambian people a few months ago when we elected them. They were elected into office. Not anymore. I think the honeymoon is over. The people are demanding for their rights, and they want electricity. They want to work. They want to improve their businesses. And just today, I was talking to some taxi drivers. They were telling me that in the areas where they live, power goes almost the whole day and only comes after 5 p.m. So they were telling me, how do you work? Because by 7 p.m., African cities have gone to sleep. So how are we going to pay our bills? How are we going to pay rentals and, the day-to-day issues? So when you touch electricity and energy issues, it's at the core of people's lives, and they want answers. They want the government to improve and also to provide those necessities for them. And I think with social media, it even adds on, the aspect of citizens demanding for goods and services from the government.
Now, Mr. Majozi, South Africa received billions from IMF to win their economy of coal dependency. Earlier on, you mentioned coal. How far is the country doing in as far as this transition is concerned?
Well, it's still going to be a lot of work, and I don't want to give you the specific statistics, Josie. But it's been a process that has been taking place. Yes, we did get there. I think it was plus $8 billion from the Western sort of institutions and and so on, for us to transition to this new way of that is being envisioned of power supply. So the process is there. It's quite slow, and also the transition is not an easy process in a developing country that faces many challenges. So you are going to have many sort of things you need to go through along the way. And also, as I spoke earlier, you've got to be strategic as well. But there is a plan that is in place, and there is a push by the government to really make use of the plus $8 billion that has been put forward to really create the foundations and the way forward on renewables. So we shall see how that goes. But so far, it's been a slow process, and we will see how things turn out over the next few years.
Okay, we are rounding up now, but I have a question for all of you. I mean, this dark period in the region has also led to insecurity. Tell us, how is it like in South Africa and also in Zambia?
Kathy?
It's scary to move at night. For me, I already have a phobia of dark places, so this even makes it worse. I will not go out in the dark. And so people are scared, and break-ins are now rampant in the night because there's no power most of the times, especially, in high density areas. It's really scary. We're scared for our lives to just move anyhow. Yeah.
Mr. Majosi?
Yes, South Africa, as you may know, it has one of the very much high crime rates in the world. I think on the data, we rank in the top 5 on homicides, things like that. A very shocking level of crime that we have. So this thing of the blackouts it's really causing a big concern amongst the citizens. They don't feel secure. There's lack of resources. And by the way, here's another thing. It's that when these blackouts take place, even the telecommunications, how you call a person, the network, it gets affected. So, I mean, even to communicate, it becomes an issue. The line doesn't become clean. So it's security concerns are there, and they have to be there given the state of the country, of where we are, and the nature of our crime rates that we enjoy in the country. So it's really been a negative, and it's really putting our citizens they are not at ease with what's going on in the country and their security.
And Haggai, are you feeling safe? I mean, also as a business owner in this dark period?
No, not really. It's hard to work at night because there's no security. I mean, there's darkness like everywhere, so it's very hard for someone to move at night. We are not safe, in short. That's what I would say.
Wow. Anyway, thank you so much, Mr. Phumlani Majosi, Kathy Short from Zambia, and Haggai Chifunda from Zambia for joining me on this discussion on the energy crisis in Southern Africa. Any parting words, Mr. Majosi?
Well, let's hold them, the leaders, accountable. Let's push. Let's shout. Let's there are elections coming up in South Africa next year. We have to hold them accountable, those who are in charge of governance. I think as citizens, where democracy prevails in sub-Saharan Africa, let's really hold our leaders accountable, because I stress that it's their mismanagement and corruption and incompetence that got us here to these blackouts.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Kathy Short?
I think democracy is the only way to go for now. It's the best alternative we have. And as citizens, let's participate and keep democracy alive in Southern Africa, because I believe it's a brilliant region and with so much potential. And therefore, we can grow and become a force to be reckoned with as a region.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for joining me on this live chat.
Thank you for having me.
And Haggai, any parting short words?
No, I don't have any.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I was talking to Mr. Phumlani Majosi, a South African analyst and senior fellow at African Liberty, also from Zambia, our correspondent, Kathy Short. She was here on this discussion. And Haggai Chifunda, who owns a barbershop in Zambia. And today's discussion was on the energy crisis in Southern Africa. Until next time, same place. My name is Josie Mahachi. It's a good evening.